What do you do when you're a 3-year starting quarterback for the then Pac-8 Washington Huskies? Just led your team to the 1977-78 Rose Bowl win over the Michigan Wolverines and have just about every NFL exec telling you they want you to change positions to play in the NFL. Well, if you're Warren Moon, you tell the NFL to stick it and you take your skills and talent up north to play in the CFL, where you proceed to win 5 consecutive Grey Cup championships, which is the Canadian Football League's Super Bowl. You then sit back and watch the NFL go through a bidding war for your services to come back to the States to play quarterback for the NFL. This is QB Unfiltered Flashback, Warren Moon. Warren Moon is the Jackie Robinson of football. Marlon Briscoe, Joe Gilliam, and Doug Williams opened the door for African-American quarterbacks to start and star in the NFL. But Warren Moon, he kicked the door in. And when he retired, he was one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Yet Moon is not mentioned by the gurus and pundits when they talk about the all-time great NFL quarterbacks. But this guy was an absolute stud. He not only was one of the best quarterbacks to ever sling it in the NFL, he was, without a doubt, the best quarterback to ever play in the CFL, the Canadian Football League. Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon started his college career at the JUCO level, playing at West LA College in Los Angeles, California. He then took his game to the University of Washington in the old Pac-8 conference, and he became a 3-year starter there. It took him a while to get going, but once he hit his stride, he lit people up, particularly his senior year, where in 1977, the 77 season, he led the Huskies to the January 1st, 1978 Rose Bowl in Pasadena, the granddaddy of them all. And the Dogs beat Bo Schembechler and the Michigan Wolverines 27-20. And Warren Moon became an instant legend in dog football history. You want to know how long ago that was? In 1977 and before, but particularly 77 when Moon was a senior, his 2 starting receivers wore 90 numbers. Think about that. 2 starting receivers wore, I think one was number 91 and one was number 93. Not D linemen, receivers. And this was back in the era where African-American quarterbacks just weren't getting a fair shake to play in the NFL. Moon and his team, his advisors, they were smart. Plus, he had a whole bunch of confidence. He knew he could do it. He knew he could play. And it should have been obvious his senior season at the University of Washington, but it wasn't. That was the era. That's the time it was in the NFL. And as I said, Moon was smart. And he told the NFL, I'm not going to change positions. I'm going to play quarterback. And so he went up to the CFL, where he proceeded to just kill it up there, playing for the Edmonton Eskimos, their head coach, Hugh Campbell. And interestingly enough, he threw to a guy, his top receiver for the Eskimos up there was a guy named Brian Kelly, who played for Washington's big rival, Washington State Cougars. And Kelly was a hell of a receiver, little guy. In fact, he right now he's got to be 70 years old, approaching 70. He's one of the top triathlon Ironman competitors in the world. Okay. And at the time, after he graduated, him and Moon both went up and played for the Edmonton Eskimos, and Warren Moon lit it up. They won 5 consecutive Grey Cups. And, he must have got a big ass kick out of watching the NFL people, the execs who told him they wanted him to move to a different position in order to play in the league. Watching those guys fall all over themselves in a bidding war to have him come play quarterback for them. And Moon decided to sign with the Houston Oilers. He signed a big contract, one of the biggest at the time in NFL history. Now, staying with the CFL for a second, that game was tailor-made for a guy like Warren Moon. The CFL plays on a wider field and a longer field. There's just more room for receivers to run. And instead of having 4 downs to get a first down, they only had 3. So throwing the rock was a premium for all offenses. And I've never met a quarterback yet that didn't like that. And so he was up there in these wide open spaces with his talent, chucking the ball all over the yard and having a blast doing it. Besides winning 5 straight Grey Cups, Moon was named the MVP twice in those championship games. And the last 2 seasons that he played up in Canada, he threw for over 5,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. Truly phenomenal. Moon played for a number of years in the NFL. And, towards the end of his career, he had a couple of good seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, and then the Seattle Seahawks were in there. And it was obvious he was at the end of his career. But his heyday, aside from the CFL, was playing for the Houston Oilers. And the Houston Oilers, those guys are now the Tennessee Titans. But when Moon played back in the day, they were the Houston Oilers, baby blue and red. And they were a match made in heaven, Warren Moon and the Oilers, and particularly when the run and shoot came to town. Okay, so now he's in the big show, the NFL, and he's playing for the Houston Oilers, and they bring the run and shoot offense into Houston, and Moon was perfect for it. 4 wideouts, no tight end, 1 back, throwing the ball about 75% of the plays. Now, when you're watching clips of Moon and the Oilers, there's a couple things that are a little bit different. Number one is they half rolled him. Okay, so instead of dropping straight back, a lot of times they would half roll him behind the tackle and have him set up and throw. And so you see him a lot going to his left, where he half rolls, gets behind the tackle, and then he has to flip his hips and get the ball out. The other thing that is pretty obvious in these clips of the Oilers and the run and shoot was they really knew how to make defenses pay for running cover 0 and bringing the house on blitzes. And so whether he's throwing hot to receivers who are breaking their routes off, seeing cover 0, or in a lot of cases, he's flipping the ball to his running back. And it's amazing to me, but this happened a lot back then. Defenses couldn't account for the running back. And for some strange ass reason, when they would rush 7 guys, they wouldn't put anybody on the back. And, you see Moon just take the snap and drop with a lot of poise, knowing that there's a guy coming unblocked, and he just throws it off his back foot out there. The other thing to notice with Moon is how he threw the football. Now, you talk about different arm slots throwing it. Warren Moon came over the top more pronounced than most quarterbacks I've seen in the NFL ever. Came straight over the top with the ball, and his mechanics were really good. He didn't have any wasted motion. He had a fairly quick release. He had great ball carriage, and he pushed that ball up and back and came through and got it out of his hand and threw a tight spiral. The last thing to notice when you're watching the Oiler clips is besides Hayward Jeffries, who was about 6'3", 6'4" receiver, he had a bunch of little dudes running routes for him. You know, most of his other receivers out there were 5'8", 5'9", and those guys could scoot. And man, they were fun to watch. Really, really fun. So Moon put up some huge numbers in the NFL. And if you think about it, his prime years, you know, being a rookie in his first 6 years in professional football, he put up statistics that don't even count towards his NFL statistics. So when you combine what he did in the CFL with what he did in the NFL, he's got some of the best numbers ever on the planet for a professional quarterback. Moon was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006. And I was fortunate enough to watch him play in person twice. And it was about 20 some years in between. So in 1977, I was a freshman quarterback at Oregon State University, and we traveled up to Seattle to play the Dogs in Husky Stadium. Moon was a senior. And so I was standing on the sideline and got a firsthand view, field level, up close and personal, and man, was he talented. And then flash forward about 20 some years later in the 90s, the early 90s, I was at Wayne State College in Nebraska as the OC quarterback coach. That's NCAA Division II school. And every year we went to 1 or 2 NFL training camps, our coaching staff. And that one year we drove from Nebraska down to San Antonio, Texas. You talk about a long ass drive. For those of you that have never been in the state of Texas, once you get into Texas on the northern border of Texas and drive down to San Antonio, it's like you're in Texas for 5 days driving. And there are parts of it where you don't see anybody. No houses, no humans, nobody. But anyway, we went to their Houston Oilers training camp in San Antonio and got to be on the field and, you know, pretty close to the drills. And of course, I shadowed Moon and everything he was doing. And wow, what a cannon he had for an arm. And the other thing that was really impressive to me, he was an ultimate professional. He was so cool out there. And just the way he carried himself on the practice field, he was a guy that knew that he knew what he was doing and knew that he was the man. And good teammate, you know, demanding of his receivers, his offensive teammates, like every great quarterback does. But to watch him throw in person was really a big thrill for me. And it's a shame that he's not mentioned in the same breath as, you know, Dan Marino and Joe Montana and Brady and Peyton Manning and Elway. And, you know, he's still talked about with those guys, but I don't think he gets the amount of credit and the props that he deserves. And like I said, you put those first 6 years of his career in the NFL playing, and those numbers are off the charts that he put up. Okay, so Warren Moon was a trailblazer and a tremendous talent. His mechanics were pretty close to perfect. He mastered and ran one of the most unique and fun offensive schemes in NFL history. And when he retired, he had a slew of records, and he gave a lot of great memories to a lot of NFL fans, me included. Okay, if you enjoyed my take on Warren Moon today, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, QB Unfiltered. Let me know in the comments below your take on Warren Moon. Did any of you remember seeing him play in the CFL? And what kind of a kick did you get watching him play for the Houston Oilers? Okay, this is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.